we going to do next? And we said, oh, we have to hold on to relationships and connections. That's what matters most. Then we jumped into some content and how are we going to deliver all the curriculum? And now we're kind of back to, okay, but let's keep remembering what's important. How do we stay connected to the people? So I'm excited about tonight.
Yeah, I am too, Dave. This is going to be a good session. And really, this kind of comes down to the core of what it's all about, is keeping those relationships going. I know I work in the digital learning team at Chick-fil-A. And, as we've made this shift from a very relational organization where we like to meet together and have dinner and lunches all the time, we're always eating at Chick-fil-A corporate. It's very relational. And when I first got hired on there, it was all about the relationship. They didn't really want people working remote, working virtually, because we were so relational. And so as a classroom teacher, I remember those days as well, building that rapport with my learners and keeping that day-to-day relationship up with my fifth graders. I mean, I remember playing, skipping lunch to go out to recess and play catch and just have those conversations that you can't have in the classroom because you got to do all the instructional stuff, but you have those moments throughout the day where you can have those just conversations to keep the relationships going. But then, my colleagues now, as we made this shift at Chick-fil-A, how do you maintain those relationships? So we've got 3 really great speakers tonight. And let me start with Stephanie Lambert here. You see, Stephanie Lambert is a corporate trainer. She has been working virtually remote for, Stephanie, how many years? 13 years?
Well, 12 with Cox, going on 13, yeah.
Yeah, so she has been doing it for a long time. And again, another company.
I thought all this was brand new. I thought it was all brand new. I thought this started 7 weeks ago. 13 years you've been preparing for this, huh? Okay. That's awesome.
So she is going to be speaking from the side of corporate learning, not just corporate learning, but just how do you maintain those relationships with your learners, because she's a corporate trainer, but also with your colleagues too. So that is really important as well. So she's going to be spending the last part of the hour talking about those things, and I'm excited to hear what she has to say because of her so much experience in this space. So that is going to be awesome. And then to start off the hour, we have Kate and Stephanie with 2 E's. They are going to kick us off here. And they are 2 excellent educators that have been in this space around virtual learning, education technology, how to transform the classroom for years now. So they are going to kick us off. And I'm just going to hand it off to you 2 right now. So Stephanie and Kate, the show is now yours. Let us know how we can help you out. And here you go.
Careful now. Here in Georgia, you don't have to actually take an in-car to get your driver's license anymore. And I feel like you just gave me the keys to the car without having to pass the test.
Let's go. Let's go for a ride.
Right.
Let's just see what happens. Let's get crazy.
Oh my gosh. I'll bring back all those days of growing up in Ohio, learning how to drive and really just doing donuts instead. So, hey, welcome everybody. Good night, evening. I think we're all East Coast based on where people said. So good night to you all. Super excited to be here. I'm just going to give a quick intro about myself, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kate, who can intro herself and then talk from a classroom perspective about what she's doing to build relationships. When initially I was talking to Rich and Bethany about coming and, what teachers do I know that are doing a really great job of this? Kate came to mind immediately, not because we get to see each other in a school anymore. We're kind of weirdly connected in a school kind of way, but just because she does a great job of sharing it out and making what she does really accessible to people on Twitter. And I think that that's the key to success right now, is that we have to cross-pollinate all of these great ideas. So you're in for a treat with her. But just a quick preview about who I am and what I do. I started off as an 8th grade Spanish teacher. I taught 8th grade Spanish for 9 years. And in the last year of that time, I was on maternity leave with my youngest guy and came back to a beta pilot for a 1-to-1 tablet with Amplify, which that pilot, that beta, that tablet doesn't even exist anymore. But if you know anything about a beta pilot, you know that everything breaks and they expect it to. And so your job as a teacher in a beta pilot is to just have huge intestinal fortitude and work your way through it. And in a lot of ways, that experience transitioned me not only to a role as a coach and then as a district administrator working on personalized learning and technology, but it really prepared me to have the intestinal fortitude to deal with what we're doing right now. And so I think in a lot of ways, what's happening right now for all of us is sort of a beta pilot, not of any one thing, but of all the things. So we're just in this massive cornucopia of change right now. And I think what I have seen in people is just really super shiny bright spots. And I'm so proud to be an educator alongside of educators, whether you're an adult educator, a higher ed educator, a corporate educator, or you're a parent who's moonlighting as an educator right now. I mean, all of the people are stepping up. And so, yeah, after, working in the district office for a few years, I lucked into the role of director of iTeach at Kennesaw State University, which is actually the nation's largest R2 university. It's a Carnegie classification, which just means we do research and we have a lot of graduate students. And so we've been actually in the instructional technology department at KSU in the College of Education. We only have graduate degrees that are fully online. And so as I've kind of been increasing my my college professor resume, it's been really interesting to see how that experience has translated. But my day job is that I get to lead this team of people who go out and coach educators really around blended, personalized learning, instructional technology. And so for years and years, we've been putting in effort. We've been making deposits into the bank that people are now withdrawing from. And so coaching is really hard sometimes in education. I'll be the first to admit to you that in my classroom, I didn't trust anybody coming in to tell me what to do differently unless I knew that they could do that thing. And so it's hard to maybe sometimes get that buy-in, especially when you're virtual. And so we've transitioned to virtually coaching teachers through this time, and I've got some insights to share there, which I think make most sense after hearing about what ground zero looks like, and that's the classroom. So I'll kind of put a pin in what I've got to share and turn it over to Kate.
Before you jump in, Stephanie, I'm
Sure.
super excited about a lot of what you said. I love the metaphors and analogies and talk about the cross-pollination, all of that kind of stuff. I think it's super important that we truly talk about the cross-pollination of things today. And the comment that you made about not wanting people in your room unless you knew they could do the things. I was actually the exact opposite. I only wanted people in my room that I knew couldn't do the things, because then I didn't have to worry about their judgment. Yeah. So when they come in and they think they know the things, sometimes it puts me back, because I think I know the things, and who are they to think they know the things better than me?
For sure.
So
well, as a Spanish teacher, I can promise you people did not know what I was saying.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So I had a protective barrier over me whenever somebody came in my classroom. But I also think too, our team really prescribes and subscribes to the Jim Knight philosophy of coaching, instructional coaching, where there's this partnership philosophy. So we approach it with as much to learn as we have to impart. And so
and that's exactly where I was going with this. My mind, when you talked about the pollination, went to the metaphor. Yesterday, I went to the greenhouse because they just opened up here in Michigan. We can actually go buy landscaping stuff. So I went and bought some blueberry plants, and there was a big sign that said, blueberries require 2 different types to cross-pollinate. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about now. Yeah. We need these 2 different types to cross-pollinate. So often we look for those like-minded adults, those people that think the same way as us, to say, give me the feedback and let's grow together. Right. But what we need is to form relationships with people that might think a little bit differently, so we can cross-pollinate and grow. So I'm excited tonight. That was awesome. You had my mind going just in your intro. Good luck, Kate.
Hey, I'm Kate Arthur, and I love the term intestinal fortitude. What a great phrase. I feel like I am in the middle of some kind of beta pilot, and but I welcome that kind of stuff. Like, I am most comfortable when I'm uncomfortable. So this is definitely something that I embraced 100%. I don't necessarily feel like I was ready for this, but I didn't have any fear around it, because I just genuinely enjoy new challenges, and I genuinely enjoy connecting with people. So this topic is definitely something that I gravitate towards. And I do think it's interesting. I currently teach 8th grade language arts at Autry Mill Middle School in Fulton County, Georgia. And Stephanie and I, our paths did not cross in Autry Mill. Our paths crossed as technology teachers in Vanguard. And then most significantly to me, she was my personalized learning teacher at Kennesaw State University, which is my most memorable class because of the relationships that it built online virtually. So I really am honored that you thought of me to ask me to do this. I don't think that I'm an expert on doing this. I think that I'm just I pride myself on being willing, to try and see what happens and then try again, so, and I'm willing tonight to show you some of the things that I've tried that have gone well and tell you about some of the things that haven't gone so well and tell you about what I'm going to try next. And, that's just where I am today. Also, I come from a background of high school English teaching and high school theater. So I am a high school theater teacher at heart. I did that for years and years. And so the idea of building something that lives and breathes and then, gets torn down is sort of where my inspiration comes from. You get a bunch of people together, you work together as a group. Like, yeah, I was the director, but I look to everyone around me to figure out what are we going to do next and how are we going to make this work. And that's kind of how I approach my classroom as well. So I think that when you include everybody in that same gym night philosophy that you were just mentioning before, when you include everybody as somebody that you can learn from, even 8th grade boys and girls, then, every day is an adventure. So if you have any immediate questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I was going to show you some of the things that I've tried out if you think that's where
I say let's jump in because I'm super excited.
Okay.
You're speaking my language too. The idea of you get people to weigh in, you don't have to get them to buy in, especially in middle school, they will see right through that.
Oh,
if
yeah.
they think you're just putting on this facade to act like you have a
Yeah.
relationship with them to get them to do something, it's manipulation. And they will eat you up and spit you out. And so will teachers if administrators do it or whatever. And I just pulled up my phone right now because my pastor this morning made a quote today that resonated with me with what you just said. He said, it's impossible to have an authentic relationship with someone from whom you are always trying to get something.
Yeah.
And I think that is so real. If we're out there saying we have to have a relationship with our kids or our staff so that, we've already missed the mark. We have to have a relationship, period, end of story. So now how do we do it? So I'm excited, Kate. Let's go.
Well, all right. I think that, first of all, I'm going to share my screen. It's going to be a little weird at first as I share. But you probably can see my flip grid here, maybe, perhaps. This is a grid that just has all of my kids checking in with a choice project. So one of the things about my classroom is that we always have something going on that is completely driven by choice. And so that is part of how I approach an authentic relationship with my kids. I believe that the things that they're passionate about or what they want to learn about is always going to be more important than the prepositions that I have to teach them. So this is just them checking in with me on what they want to start researching. What do you think you're going to do? And I've done these types of projects every year. And so trying to move that project online has been a bit of a challenge, but I can't say enough about Flipgrid because it really does allow kids to get their voice out there, to talk back and forth. I definitely don't use it as much as I want to use it, because if I used it as much as I wanted to use it, they wouldn't want to use it, if that makes sense. So kind of finding that balance between getting them to talk to me, but also not forcing them to talk too much. So that was them talking about their projects, and it's just a way for us to like check in and see how everybody's doing. I've also used this just as a place to say, hey, tell me, what's a smile and what's a frown of something that you've got going on right now in regard to this online learning world that we're in. So just giving them a place to be themselves. I can't see the top here. Oh, this was more along the, I know this is kind of jumping gears, or tabs, if you will, but this one we just set up because we're also trying to maintain relationships across bringing a close to our school year. So I know this is changing topics here, but this is a grid that we created so that teachers could jump in and leave these final messages for their students. So anybody at Autry Mill is slowly but surely giving their words of wisdom or final, goodbyes to their kids. And I'm going to put those things together in a compilation video for them.
Kate, real fast.
Yes, please.
For those of us that are on here, and some of these tools that you're showing us are
new,
pretty popular for the academic classroom, but those of us that are corporate, what are these tools?
So Flipgrid is a space for kids to record videos, really. So it allows the teacher or the facilitator to give a prompt, and then people have an access code to just come in. Like if I hit this plus button right now, it will allow me to record a quick video in response to that.
So I could, so this is, we're live right now, but this would be form of asynchronous
Absolutely.
communication, not necessarily learning, but collaboration, small talk. I mean,
Could be small talk. It could be a place to give feedback. It could be, but it's an asynchronous, it's almost like an asynchronous video message board.
okay.
So let me give a little bit of, can I jump in just a little,
Please.
and I'll give you some background. So actually Flipgrid was just acquired by Microsoft. And so it's part of the Microsoft Now suite of partner tools. And essentially, yeah, you can post any prompt you want. That prompt can be a text prompt or a video prompt or an image prompt, and then people can respond. So some of the ways that we use it, not for just student feedback, I've seen a math teacher post you know, a formula, and then the kids have a minute to 90 seconds to respond, and not just solve it, but describe how they solved it and why they solved it the way they did. And so it can be really great for evidence of mastery, for, you know, sort of helping students metacognate through their learning. And then from an adult relational perspective, after, you know, my team would deliver, maybe we were doing a more traditional professional development session, we would have our feedback gathered in this format rather than having the survey fatigue of people coming through, you know, click, Likert scale, Likert scale, open-ended question that you'll never answer, Likert scale. So then they just click the plus sign and have, you know, a minute to just talk about their experience. And we found that to be so much more rich than, you know, any of that other data we were getting.
Yeah, we found it.
This platform does so much for engaging people in conversations where they wouldn't normally do it. I'm just thinking PLCs and staff meetings and all these times where normally there's a sage on the stage that's the expert. Everybody else just sits there quietly, or there's that one person that makes the staff meeting go on for 2 hours and everybody's constantly rolling their eyes at that person.
Yeah.
Throw out some Flipgrid stuff to staff members and engage everybody in their conversation, get their voice, get them to talk when they're not holding up the crowd, and everybody can now speak to the masses, or with your students in the same manner.
And under each one of these, you can reply as well. So it can be an ongoing conversation under each one of these individual videos.
Got it.
Yeah.
So Stephanie Lambert, my wheels are turning right now as far as from the corporate adult space. Like, wow, what could we do with this? You know?
Yeah. This is a new system for me, so I'm being educated right now, and I love it. I love the idea that you allow them to choose a topic that they like, that keeps them engaged and interested. And I was already thinking about how we could take that to the learning that we do right now virtually in a professional space to, I mean, have an entire session. I guess right now they sign up by topic, but why not have it be something where they come and bring the topic they want to discuss? So this is definitely very intriguing.
Yeah, give my wheels turn too. Okay, thank you.
Another piece, and then I'll let Kate get back to it, I promise. But another piece that's really great about Flipgrid is that you can do this pre-synchronous session or pre-learning, you know, sort of unit. So it's a great way to do a hook, an opener, to get pre-feedback. Think about that, you know, elementary school KWL chart, and this is sort of the K and the W or the L. And so it's really helpful in that way, but it's also really fun. Like my team did one where we did mixology Flipgrid. And so I prompted them on a Friday afternoon, like, hey, what cocktail are you stirring this weekend? And just as a way to like blow off steam at 5 o'clock in the afternoon after week 5 of, there you go, buddy. Week 5 of all of this, they made their drink, you know, like showed everybody how to do it. So from a relationship perspective, you can use it in a super rigorous academic way, or you can mix cocktails, right?
Yeah, we're doing it right now. We're doing a dance challenge that one of our PE teachers has put out for us. And so the teachers are submitting their videos of that. And so I've just seen it used so many different ways. When to study for the first Romeo and Juliet test that these guys had, they went through and they found quotes that held significance, and they recorded themselves saying them without saying what it was or what character. And then kids went back and replied to each other saying, oh, that's Tybalt in Act 1. It's significant because it shows him to be a foil to Benvolio, you know, so it allows them to interact in any way that you set up, or really any way that they can come up with as well. And you can download these videos, you can create, you can curate them, you know, so if I pull different ones that I want to use as models later on, I can do those types of things as well. But I really just wanted to show it as I just love to be able to go back and see their faces, to see how they're feeling right now, how they're doing right now. It just allows me to take that pulse check that I can't, because I fought really hard to make sure, I'm gonna stop sharing here. I fought really hard to be able to see their faces. Like we couldn't use Zoom, and at first we couldn't see their faces on Microsoft Teams. And then we could see their faces, and none of my 8th graders wanted to show their faces. 0. They were like, no. So Flipgrid has been a way for me to be able to keep seeing them and to engage with them and talk with them asynchronously. So synchronously.
Yeah, it's super important. And I think too, you know, what I've been telling people is that teachers like Kate, who had 3/4 of a year to set up fantastic relationships in the classroom with their students, have been able to translate effective ways to do that in this digital space. What will be very challenging for all of us is to think about starting a school year or starting a professional learning year that doesn't have that basis with a new group of students that we don't have that relationship already built with. And so something that my team has been trying to advise leadership teams and, you know, both at the school and the district level of, is that as soon as decisions can be made about next year, and really truly we're hearing none right now. So I wish I could share with you some great things I'm hearing. I just hear a lot of plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and task force people getting together and forming opinions. But the sooner that we can make some plan, the sooner that teachers can start to get creative about trying to start building those relationships. And so like a Flipgrid is a great way to do, you know, hey, everybody, I don't know you and you don't know me, but for the next 5 weeks before school starts, every week I'm going to post a new grid and like, show me your pet, you know, or talk to me about your least favorite subject and why you don't like it. And so trying to, again, like space bank some of that, you know, emotional and relational currency is going to be super important.
And that's something I love hearing. You know, we're not necessarily just talking tools to get you through the next week, 2 weeks, month. If the stuff we're talking about right now isn't evergreen and doesn't transcend what you do next year, 5 years, 10 years from now, then we're wasting your time. It just had the same conversation with my administrative staff last week. We were talking about parent-teacher conferences and how we could think about the attendance rates of our parent-teacher conferences next year if we all go to Zoom conferences, and people don't have to drive in after work or come to us in our buildings where it's uncomfortable. Same thing here. You know, those get to know your student days just got so much better now when we use some of this technology. Show me your favorite stuffed animal. Show me your dog. Show me your pet. Show me your siblings in a Flipgrid. And now you can know your classmates before school starts too and start responding. It's amazing.
Yeah. And truly, you know, again, I think I shy away from calling what's happening right now anything. I think there are elements of a lot of things going on, right? There are elements of virtual learning. There are elements of blended learning. There are elements of personalized learning. There's elements of all kinds of stuff. But it is just like a massive conglomeration of all of it. But I think underpinned in all of this is that the people I see most successful are the ones who, whether they called it by this name, right? A rose by any other name. I'll give you a literary kickoff. Right. Yeah. So whether they call it personalized learning or they don't, if you've already had a classroom again, or a belief system where you think that the learner is valued equally, that the learner does have choice and authority over some of their learning, that you do want to try to get into one-on-one co-planning conversations with your students, right? Like, all of those things are fundamentally going to make this more successful because those belief systems are in place.
I also have been thinking a lot about the grad school term of transactional distance theory, you know, and just making sure that my presence is still very visible to my kids. Like, I show up for my live lesson on Monday, you know, language arts is on Monday over here, but trying to get my face or things that they're familiar seeing that they associate with me as often as possible. I also taught Fulton virtual last summer, so I am familiar with the idea of, hi, we've never met in person before, and I'm your teacher. And a lot of that is just reminding the kids that you are a human being and that you exist and that you genuinely are, you know, here to be their teacher and not just this person who clicks a button and lets them go on to the next part of the training, you know? Yeah. So I found that the more I said at the end of my emails, write me back and tell me what you had for breakfast, the more I was able to start finding out who these people were and how, and letting them know that I was, you know, here and willing to listen.
Kate, I am so glad you said that. And I'm going to step on a soapbox just for a quick second, because I have heard from, I can't tell you how many hundreds of teachers from across the country who have said that in their distance learning plan, there is no real-time face-to-face connection built in. And okay, I get it. I understand people. I really want to assume everybody's doing the absolute best they can. They're trying to find the happy balance between teachers and student needs and parent needs and all of that. However, I'm yet to see a distance learning plan that says teachers are not allowed to have that face-to-face interaction. It's one thing to say it's not built in the plan. It's another thing to say you can't do it. And you just hit on the head why we need to continue to do that. The term you use is way smarter than what I'm going to use, but truly, kids need to know that you are a human being and you're not just a bot assigning things. There are enough free programs out there that kids can go in and play math games and language arts games where they don't need a teacher.
Yeah.
Teachers make the difference. Put your face in front of those kids and let them see that you are a human being. Thank you for saying that, Kate. I'm sorry. I had to go. That was so powerful.
Well, I'll retweet you and add one. I think that for teachers who might have been fearful that they were going to become obsolete, you know, sort of the Terminator 2 version of like computer takeover, this is proving more than ever to me and to all the people who are paying attention that learning and teaching is much more than an automated pedagogy and an algorithm, right? And so it doesn't matter. I mean, those things, truly, I value them because they release me from the menial tasks of teaching to get more relational with my students. And so don't vilify them, but also understand that the value add, right? Let's throw Krashen out there. The theory of comprehensible input +1. All the AI in the world can give you comprehensible input, but the +1 has to come from that relationship between you and your teacher. And it's not because the teacher knows everything and has to impart it on you, but it's because they take stock in what you're doing and that they really care. And again, I think there are some, and I think it's a small minority, there are some who this will be their exit from education, right? This has pushed them to the brink and the breaking point. And, you know, as much as that hurts my heart because our profession is so in need of more, I also am smart enough and with it enough to know that the people who are exiting, we're not going to make it in the long run for the betterment of everybody, themselves and the students. And so, yeah, sorry to say, but it is true. And so part of my job too, as sort of a leader, is to coach people up. And sometimes coaching them up means coaching them out and into something else, right? And so again, this has just been such a vice, and some people under pressure make delicious Pinot Noir, right? And some people under pressure just get splashed and look gross. And so I think, you know, you have to authorize both of those is okay. Again, not to vilify any part of it, but it is just what happens.
Well, I feel like in order to do this job well, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. You know, you have to be able to be honest and willing in any situation. So that's now you've asked people to do that and be recording themselves doing that. Like knowing that this is being recorded and that other people will be able to see it whenever they want until the end of time. If I think about it for too long, I can't be my authentic self sitting here, you know, I just start to have a panic attack. No, go ahead.
I say that you bring up an interesting point, Kate, that relationships are even more important now going into this season because this the whole idea around trust. Now, before all this, you had a teacher come in and observe you, or someone come in and watch you. You know, you had that. There's all those buffers in place and different things, and you had a relationship, right, with the administrator coming in, so you knew what to expect. Now, those relationships are getting further and further and further behind us. So I think it's even more important now that you maintain those trusting relationships because
I'll take a step further. I'm thinking about a situation with me and my own kids. So if anybody's listening to this and they're my own kid's school, I'm sorry. I'm going to start this with I'm sorry. Because one of my kids, I've got 4. One of them has had some face-to-face interactions with their teacher. And I sit there and I watch some of the stuff that takes place. And I have no evaluative authority on that teacher whatsoever. But the reality is all teachers everywhere that are doing those Zoom meetings, the Google Meet, whatever, the Hangout meetings, they have parents that are now observing them that have never observed them before. And there are parents now casting judgment like they have never cast judgment before. And that's adding a whole nother layer. But God bless my kid who, when afterwards I made a snippet comment I shouldn't have made, I know I shouldn't have made it, but my kid looked at me and said, but she loves me. Are you kidding me? How cool is that? You know, because my kid gets it. My kid was coming to the aid in the defense of the teacher who's doing the absolute best they can. Put me in my place because of that relationship that they have. And I mean, that's what it's all about right now, because yeah, we are going to be judged. We're going to have people coming out of the woodworks and critiquing us like never before. Okay. So focusing on what matters most, and you'll have the people coming to your defense like never before as well.
So interesting. Like I saw an article this morning actually that it might have been an op-ed in like the New York Times. I'm not really sure. I might be able to find it and share the link. But essentially it was this whole conversation around education, and there are two sides, and you're either at one or the other in the public eye. Either teachers are our heroes and we're lifting them up, or down with teachers, they do a crap job, right? There's no intermediary. Like it's a complete binary in this field. And there are a few other fields that I think are like that too. But it is so interesting because I think for the first—
Are there? There are others?
I mean,
I'm racking my brain.
I'll speak from my husband's perspective as a police officer. Like, you know, they're not the hot firefighters that show up and save kittens. So sometimes they get good press and sometimes they get awful press, just like teachers. But I think, you know, all that to say, like, you know, you got to kind of ride the tide. And I think that the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of this was the honeymoon phase, and nobody was really casting much judgment on anything because we were all like, all right, it's going to be fine, right? This is like a little blip in an otherwise, like, you know, steady sea. And then as the weeks roll on, and let me just be clear, I in no way want to make it seem like this is all rosy and that I'm not stressed out and that teachers shouldn't be stressed out. I am an experienced teacher. I know what I'm doing, and I like to think that I'm pretty effective. I'm dying over here. Okay. Like it's, I mean, like as a parent trying to teach my own kids, I feel like they are getting the absolute crumbs that are left of me at the end of the day that I'm trying to pour into the teachers that I'm coaching, and then also support the team that I'm responsible for leading. And then whatever's left goes to them and it's scraps. And 9 days out of 10, I feel like a crap mom. So like, just hear me, like, that's okay. And we're all rowing our own boat here. And so I don't want to put out there that, like, you know, I've got it all together, do what I do. I don't have it all together. I'm sitting in my basement hiding from my children to get 5 minutes apiece right now so that I can do this call. So like, it's going to be all right. It's, yes, I know it's like almost 9 o'clock and they're running like banshees.
I just wanted to say that I'm in the same boat, you know, 2 boys, almost 8 and 5, you know, we're all doing the best we can with any given moment, you know. But I have to give a shout out to my son's 2nd grade teacher who plays virtual Pictionary with her class every Friday morning, which is like hurting. I watch it. It's like hurting kittens. It is the most painful thing, but they love it. You know, they absolutely love it. And so it's just little things like that, I mean, he loves her. He loves being able to see his class. It's not even just, it's about maintaining the relationship with the teacher, but also with those kids, their relationship with each other. They get a chance to kind of to talk and share with each other. So, yeah, I mean,
shared earlier before everybody joined the call, you know, I mentioned my little one who's in 1st grade is struggling a little bit. And I'm really starting to concern myself with his mental health. He is a super level kid, and I guess it was Thursday of last week, came inside and kind of had like a King Kong moment where he just smashed his fist down on the couch and was like, I hate coronavirus. It's ruining my life. I can't play with any of my friends. And so, you know, it's heartbreaking because there's not much that I can do for him to get him to his friends. And so thank goodness that we have technology that I could, you know, text a mom friend in his class and just say, hey, can Barrett just get on with him? And literally Luke didn't even pay attention to what, I mean, they were both just like in their own corners of their rooms. Luke had his, bearded dragon out of the cage, like wiggling it. You know, Cheeto was having a panic attack because he was out of his cage and freaking out. But it was so much what they needed. And so, again, I'll give a shout out to, you know, the teachers that really, like, his teacher has put out so many opportunities, to like join in classes and just have funny, silly time. And she then had to break it up into smaller groups because it was just like, I mean, I've never heard anything that made me think that I needed to medicate myself more than like 30, 25, 7-year-olds just like, blah, 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 blah. It was crazy. So,
but you know, you hit on, I'm going to say another quote: alone is a choice, lonely is not. Give kids the opportunity and the choice, whether or not they want to be alone, whether or not they want to participate. Just because it's not comfortable for you as the adult, trust me, I can't stand those Zoom meetings with the 30 screaming kids and nobody knows how to mute their mics. I can't stand it. But the kids love it. So let them go. If it's uncomfortable for them, they can exit, but give them the choice. whether or not they want to be alone or not.
Yeah, my son doesn't like to be on the mic, but he loves that chat box and those gifs and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a Pokemon, and it's those little things. I mean, we are not talking about sight words or phonics, or we're just talking about remembering that everybody's connected, and that's the most important part.
Yeah, and I guess I'll transition that a little bit to this sense of like connecting and relationships with the teachers that we're supporting. We've got contracts in a lot of schools and districts all over the U.S. and same thing has sort of like caught up with us where yes, we can continue to coach virtually, and thankfully our team already had a mechanism for that. I Teach on Demand was launched way before Corona was on scene, and so we had all of the bricks laid for the foundation. So it was an easy transition in that way. But what's not easy is getting people to value that time the way that they would value it if you met them where they were when they were there, right? It's really good for us as coaches to come into a classroom and just say, you do what you're doing, let me take a small group, or let me, model a lesson for you, or do you need to run and make a copy? No worries, like let me teach this and like watch me do it, so we can build all that rapport all day face to face. But virtually it's been a little different. And so what I've been doing is hosting happy hours for the teams and the districts that we support. And so a school district in Frederick County, Maryland, that we work with, they've got a group of teacher leaders, super awesome group. And we hosted a happy hour, 200 of them showed up. I live DJ'd, I sent out a collaborative Spotify playlist ahead of time. We played some trivia, and we didn't say one thing about anything that would have been school related. And they just needed, again, same with the kids that we teach, they just needed time to be with each other, if not physically, then at least in the same virtual space, and to just cut up a little bit. And so that's something that we've been really trying hard to do for all of our partner districts and schools, is to just say, listen, we're here. If that means let's go through a lesson plan, we're here. If you need instructional design help to figure out how to make this lesson work virtually, but we're also here if you just want somebody to, dump on, if you want to have a happy hour.
Stephanie, I'm going to pause you for a second right now, because I want, if they're building leaders, district leaders, administrators, whatever, I want them to pause on what you just said right now in this distance learning environment. I want anybody that's got the placard outside of their office to think about your staff meetings, your department meetings, whatever they are, wherever you work, whether you're a school or not, and think about how different they should be 6 months from now based off of what you just said. I mean, can Spotify collaborative list, that's not something that only exists when you're in a distance environment.
Correct.
Happy hour, it's not something that it better not just exist when you're in a distance learning environment. Those are things that could and should be happening everywhere. If you're using staff meetings and department time just to pass an agenda along, I mean, you're learning right now what they should be.
Yeah.
So do not lose sight of that.
And I would add to that too, there's, you definitely need to check out, if you lead a team of people, including a school team, Education Elements, their CEO, I think, or president, I don't know his actual title, but Anthony Kim, who's got a great book called New School Rules. And then there's also one called New Team Habits. And they're phenomenal. It's really about responsive teams, and a big part of what he talks about, and he's a friend, and so I just kind of, rob his brain trust, but we've implemented it with our team, and you don't bring something to a meeting unless it has an action item attached to it. And if the action item is just to inform, then there's no meeting required, right? And so, again, like something I do to value my team's time and build relationship is to honor their time. Like their time is valuable. And so, and actually, I was going to share my screen. I don't know that it's actually necessary. I can kind of just talk about it, but we operate on Google Chat as our massive communications hub. And I have had to implement a Friday at 4:00 radio silence until Monday morning. And it's not because I don't want them to talk to each other, but it's because they were not setting their own boundaries. And so in a protective maneuver, we've just had to go radio silent, and it breaks my heart and it broke their hearts, because the Life channel flies off all weekend long, right? Pictures of kids and like all the stuff that we're doing. And our team's a little different in the fact that like, we're just a family, and everybody loves each other genuinely and also thinks they're crazy. And so it's a great team, and it's a high functioning team in that way, but it's also the communication and the notifications got to a point where we didn't have any mental and emotional disconnect from work. And especially in a system where you're working from home and you're doing that round the clock and they're pouring out for teachers constantly, right? Like my team had in week 1 over 8,000 chats, emails, direct messages, video meetings, 8,000 between 35 people. Like, when you think about that. So it was huge. And so we've done that to protect our space, and it's been good. And then on Monday morning, the flood of the Life channel just comes in, right? And so everybody just shares at that point, and we still celebrate everything that's going on. But that's been super helpful. And I would say from a college perspective, you know, that's a different dynamic, right? Especially a college like Kennesaw, that so many people are used to teaching online in the graduate sort of realm, but the undergraduates, especially the pre-service teachers who got caught in the vice of their placements for student teaching were happening during this time. They had Ed TPA guidelines, which actually for our state just got waived. And so, you know, those requirements are off the table now, but so many of the things that you don't think about in the field of education, like our pipeline is coming up through a really weird time right now. And so what are these baby teachers' experiences going to shift because of this? If they were, you know, supposed to be in a placement during this pandemic, is the teacher that they were assigned to, though they might have been a phenomenal, you know, guide teacher live and in action and face-to-face, did they give them a good example of the pedagogy necessary for this kind of environment? And so I think we're going to experience a little bit of a skills gap that we're going to have to recover from over time.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. Let's go ahead and make that transition to, we did a lot of talk just now about teams and all those kinds of things, and keeping that virtual rapport up. You know, that's where I want to bring in Stephanie. You know, Stephanie Lambert has been doing this for a long time, 15 years virtually. So I would love to get her thoughts, her tips and tricks, and how she keeps engaged with her learners and her teams with all adult learners and adult colleagues, so corporate colleagues. So how do you do it, Stephanie? How have you been?
I just want to stop and think about that again. You keep saying this, but 15 years you've been doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And it is bizarre because we are in education and we're supposed to be preparing kids for the real world. Yeah. And yet this hit us and we were like, oh my gosh, what do we do? But people have been doing this for more than a decade already in the real world.
Yeah, it's very different though. Yeah, it's very different. Hi, so my name's Stephanie Lambert. I reside in Michigan. I work for Cox Automotive and I've been there for 13 years. But so I am remote. I'm from Michigan. My entire team is in Atlanta. So I'm the only one that's remote. So I have been the remote virtual team member for as long as I can remember, even before this job. A lot of what you guys are saying is so intriguing to me. And of course, my perspective is corporate, but I do have 4 kids from the age of 4 to 12 that are all now being homeschooled by my husband, who has been a stay-at-home dad for 12 years, who has just this past year went back to be a teacher. So he was in the middle of his student teaching in school in a first grade class. All of that was put on hold, and now he's actually finishing his student teaching with a virtual classroom. So this stuff is very intriguing to me. There's a lot of crossover in what you're saying, Stephanie and Kate, and you know, I'm going to touch on that. So I just put together 5 things that have really helped me from a corporate place in keeping connections strong, and some of the things that we're seeing that are very different today with how we're doing training. So, you know, a lot of our training has been in the past mostly in person with a portion of virtual. I would say we try to do 60% maybe to 70 in person and then the rest virtual. And those virtual environments, we're like, we'll make them as good as we can, but our emphasis are on creating this in-person experience. Everyone loves the connection in person and all of that. You can't replace it. But today we are being forced with putting as much effort and emphasis on the in-person that we, you know, in the virtual that we were doing in person before. So I just put together 5 things that are really helping us. You know, this all started for us the week of March 13th. That was a Friday for us when everything changed. Actually, it was that Tuesday before we had a trainer out in California, and it was the day that our company, our president, had announced that because of COVID, we could no longer have any large group meetings. So we had people from all over the United States travel to California for a training, and that morning they contacted every single person, even though they were already there, and told them to get the first flight home. And so about a 30-person training session totally dispersed in that moment, and that's when everything for us changed about 8 weeks ago. So these 5 things, some of the things that we're doing now, all of our training went from in-person to completely virtual. And because of all of the constraints and restrictions financially that companies are facing today, we actually have zero budget to fulfill any in-person training for the rest of 2020. So all of our training will be absolutely completely virtual for the rest of the year. So here's what we're doing. The first thing is camera on. And I know that sounds really simple, but this camera thing before in the past has seemed to be an option for many people, and it really can no longer be an option. So the comments about, well, I'm having a really bad hair day, I don't want to turn it on, or I haven't put any makeup on, or I'm just in my sweats, we're like, who cares? Bring the virtual connection. It's helping so much. And so really, we have been coming to the calls, our team calls, even the 6 of us with everyone virtual. Don't be afraid to wear your sweatshirt and have your hair in a messy bun if you're a girl, or if you've got the beard and you've got the disheveled look as a guy, if like we have guys that are coming to the call saying, I haven't had a haircut in forever, I feel crazy. We're like, who cares? Camera on, let's connect, right? So that's really, really important. So we're saying, forget how you look, forget all of that, turn your camera on. That's the number 1 thing. And so obviously you guys talked about how the kids are loving that right now. My second grader loves that. They just want to be goofy. We just want to see each other. That's number 1. Number 2, instant chat. So because in the past, when you're in person, there's a lot of opportunity for these small chats to happen when you walk by each other, when you're in the, when you're in your copy rooms or whatever you guys are doing as teachers. Same thing corporate, when you're in person sessions together, people are talking all the time. But the second one is, if you've got a device to use any type of instant chat, use it. And so, as you mentioned, Kate, your son, it sounds like your 8-year-old is probably more comfortable using the chat features, using GIFs and things like that, or GIFs, like I always say it wrong. But the more that you can use multiple things at one time, the more that everyone can connect, because it's no different than being an auditory learner, visual or kinesthetic. It's the same thing, but now virtual. It's like, what's your preference? Do you want to chat? Do you want to verbally speak? Do you want to engage through just status symbols and things like that? So we're looking for every opportunity possible in these virtual environments to really connect with one another. So using that chat device will allow you to check in quickly with people. It makes you kind of feel like you're together when you're not. Number 3, time to connect. So this is kind of a big one, at least corporate wise. I don't know what the layouts are. It sounds like they're way more lax now, and it's just about that connection time. But in the past, before COVID-19 happened, when we would have a meeting, we knew that we had 60 minutes or 30 minutes to get through a certain amount of content. And so it may have been frustrating in the past for people to do some chit chat, if you will. So this time to connect is, if everyone can come to a virtual call and set the expectation in their mind that the first 5 to 10 minutes needs to be relationship building. It needs to be, how are you? And then for those people that have a little bit of a challenge with that, I put in the notes here just as a takeaway, ask one follow-up. And especially with kids, I lead the teen ministry at our church. And so we'd actually just finished a call with them, and we have sometimes 15 to, we've had 20 teens join. And it's one thing, how are you guys doing? We say, how are you doing? They're like, we're doing okay. Ask a follow-up. It's no different than with adults in that virtual connection. Make time for chit chat at the beginning of every call if you can. And if you're wired like me, you want to get down to business like right now and get done with things. That's kind of how I'm wired. I'm resetting my expectations. Ask people how they are. Ask a follow-up question. And so that's kind of the third tip there.
Stephanie, I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Go ahead.
I think that's one of those things we overlook so many times, especially, I'll just talk to teachers. In real classrooms, we tell teachers all the time, stand at your door, greet your kids, shake their hands, give the fist bumps, ask about their weekends. And now we're in this virtual world, and so many people say, I just can't do that right now. I've got to control the waiting room. I got to let all these people in. Well, then you get to the meeting 5 or 10 minutes early and encourage people to do the same thing. I mean, Rich did that with me tonight. He was there early, and we just sat around and connected, and he made fun of my shirt a little bit, and we just had a good time. And it makes a difference. So just get there and connect. I love that. So simple, yet so good.
Yeah, it is very true. And for you teachers, I appreciate you guys doing that with my kids. So number 4 has been something I've learned just recently that I think is a game changer. And it's very bizarre, but it's so impactful. So check this out. When you're on a virtual call and you're ending the call, if you're the leader or not, don't be the first to jump off. Hang out. Hey, especially if you're the leader. Hang out, because there will be, or there may be, some people that stay on to the very end. And I have seen more organic conversation come from after the presentation or after the discussion or after the classroom check-in. At the end, more conversation begins. And that's where relationship building continues. That's people that may be hanging on because they don't necessarily want to go. You know, it's tragic, but we know that kids right now are being faced with, you know, the in-home situations that maybe that aren't the healthiest, right? We know that that's a reality that a lot of kids are facing right now. And so they have this opportunity to connect with teachers. And so the ones that maybe hang out a little bit longer, maybe there's an opportunity to connect with them in a different way. You know, it's no different professionally when we do our trainings. What we've been doing now is staying on until the very end. And actually with our team ministry too, within our church, we've been staying on, and you'll see some of those, and those conversations continue at the end. And it's really rich conversation, and usually is very pointed. It's very needed in that space. So that was the fourth one that's been new for us that we've been trying to do. And it's really been cool to see who hangs on and what conversations happen. And then the last one is something that I've kind of always done, but I think it's more important now than ever. You have to have a notepad and pen with you for every virtual call. And this is what I would say: follow up. And whether it's asking someone about something, or you hear them mention something and they're like, yeah, next week we've got this going on, or I've been wondering or thinking about this. You following up on that one comment is going to speak volumes to how much you care about them, you know, what you think of them, that you're there for them. It could be something as simple as someone saying they had a really bad day, and you check in with them 2 days later, one-on-one, maybe through your email. Maybe you email a student, or maybe you check in with a colleague and you say, tell me, are you having a better day today? And they're like, whoa, you heard me say that? Like, you care. It's bringing virtual more to life that way. So any kind of reminder or follow-up you can ever get out of anything you're discussing. I take notes. I put notes in my calendars to remind me. I'm constantly trying to follow up to show people that even though we're virtually, even though we're spaced apart, I hear you, I see you, I care, I'm right here. We're in this together. The other thing that we've been doing, just a side note, you know, when we start training virtually, our camera's on, and sometimes we go through quite a bit of content, so we'll take our camera off, and we're constantly bringing that camera on, like all throughout the training session, just to keep people engaged. And we've actually been asking our participants to turn their camera on when they're giving responses, and I'm talking about like 40-person virtual sessions, so it's hard to get 40 people on one screen, but when they are responding or interacting, we're asking for camera on. So those are just some of the top 5 things that we're trying to do right now virtually. I just wanted to share, and you know, I'm thankful for all that you guys are doing, and I've learned a ton tonight. So I'm open for any questions, but those are just
Stephanie, I want to comment on your last one, the 5 set reminders. It's so practical. Again, I love your tips here. They're just so practical, and they're like smacking me across the face. And again, I've got my phone in front of me, so I just did a quick check through my calendar app, and I just in the month of May, I've got 26 different people's birthdays mentioned in my calendar app. And I have those in there because I will forget about their birthday. And I don't want to be that guy that just responds to people's birthdays on Facebook. I mean, that's good, but I want to be able to send that text and that personal message to people as well. People don't necessarily need to know that I've got their calendar in my, that I have their birthday in my calendar, or they don't need to know that I have a note in my calendar to call them and reach out to them tomorrow. They don't need to know that my phone or my app is reminding me to make that connection. They just need to know that I'm connecting with them. I think that's so good. And I'm thinking about, I have the person that the last couple of Mondays, randomly, in my mind, it's random, has reached out to me just to say, hey, how are you doing? It's a person that doesn't live in my state. And it's made such an impact on me to feel like this person was thinking about me in that moment. But now I'm realizing, no, they probably just put a calendar reminder in there to say, reach out to Dave on Monday. But how that it's such a simple thing to do today on a Sunday. Sit down and throw some reminders in there in your phone to reach out to people throughout the week. Pick a couple of other adults to reach out to. Pick some kids to reach out. Whoever it is you're working with, set some reminders to reach out to somebody when you can. In this time of stillness on a Sunday night, throw it in your calendar so that later on in the week when life gets crazy, you'll have that reminder. So simple, but so important.
Something that I've been doing too, and that's a great, like, setting reminders is the only way I live. Like, my calendar tells me where to breathe and be 100% of the time. And so if it's not on there, like, I will just not be where you need me to be. But I just was thinking about this this whole concept of like checking in on people, and something we work with the Montague Workshop and develop content for them. And you'll know Brad Montague as a writer and also the creator of Kid President and just kind of like the modern day Mr. Rogers. And Brad and his wife Christy are like amazing people, but they're so good at this, right? They're so good at like being awesome people in public, but then again, just doing those things that make people feel seen. And after our team finished, some lessons and some book guides for his new book, he shipped us overnight Jenny's ice cream. And we had just, our team had a little driveway ice cream party thanks to Brad. And so I'm not saying you have to buy ice cream for everyone, but I think those things are just characteristically fortify people. And something that, I think there's so many people in my life that I can point to that do a great job of it. And I always strive to do a better job of it, but it's so important to take those moments. So.
But if people do want to buy ice cream, my email address,
Correct.
my personal address, my phone number, it's all on my website. Feel free to find it. I would happily take any ice cream you want to deliver off your hands.
Yeah. And I think I'll also just add to like one thing that he put out there was just, if somebody's having a bad week, I'm paraphrasing, but he put a graphic out that you can find. If somebody's having a bad week, open your ears more than your beak. And I think that people like me who are, let's call it leadership potential rather than like bossy, right? So people like me who want to solve problems and who hear from people, and then I immediately go to, how can I fix it? What can I do for you? How can I support you, right? I've had to tamp down a lot of that knee-jerk reaction in my own personality and identify it, because people don't want that. They just want to be heard and listened to. And so I'm really trying very hard to not ask people during this time, how are you? I'm really trying to say, tell me 3 things that are going on with you that you just want to get off your chest. And I think that that's shifted my perspective, because I know going into it, they don't want me to say anything to fix it.
It's one of those from the mouths of babes things. My daughter, she's so adorable. On Thursday night, she has virtual dance class, and they do this 2-hour Zoom thing, and I have to sit there and watch ballet and jazz, whatever. It's hell for me, but she loves it. Every once in a while, the teacher will say, does anybody have a question or something they want to share? And she's expecting people to talk about their points or whatever. And oh my gosh, these little girls that are just craving the attention will, my doggy yesterday, he went to the park and we had to go catch him, or I got a new stuffed animal. They're just talking about the most random things ever. They don't need help. They just want to be heard. They just have something they want to say. But that's so true of all of us. Even myself right now speaking, did I have to unmute myself and tell this story? No.
Yes.
But I just want to be heard. But it's so true, from adults to kids, whatever.
Yes. You got to let your magic flow, man.
That's, as you guys are both talking, and we'll wrap this up. It is 9:00 after 9 now. But, one of the things true at Kathy, we get reminded about this a lot. He always talked about the relationships and encouraging people. And one of the things he used to always say was, how do you know if somebody needs encouragement? And his answer was, if they are breathing, they need encouragement. So, that's a great reminder, this virtual space. We would pass each other in the hallways a lot when we were physically in the same room together. We would maintain our relationships by giving encouragement, showing empathy, because we saw them. So I love the conversation about putting it on your calendars and looking for those people, because they're still breathing somewhere. Even though they're not with you at the moment, they're still breathing somewhere, reaching out, giving them encouragement. So just to remember, it's always about the relationship. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight and bringing us your tips and tricks. Great conversations. Kate, Stephanie, you guys bring so much to this conversation tonight. And I am so thankful for all that you do, both Stephanie's and Kate, for your dedication to just education for not only our children, but our adults as well. So thank you for all that you're doing on those front lines, either corporate or in the K-12 space. So thank you so much.
And David, I echo that. I echo that completely. I feel like this is a conversation we could have had 6 months ago, or we could have 6 months in the future. Yeah. And every single thing that you presented would be totally valid. It wasn't about making connections in a virtual space. It was how to make relationships with people and why relationships matter. Again, we don't need to stick our finger in the dam and say, how do I get through the next couple of weeks? It's make connections with people, and connections last if it's a lasting connection. So thank you so much for this. I needed this desperately, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. You've been such gracious hosts. It's been awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you for
much.
having me. Thanks.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody.